Nightmare Grandmaster. Oh yeah, boys. I ain't gonna, that feels real good. That feels so rewarding. I do think though, I will say, I think that they do need to. These tier 100s are no joke, man. This one kind of felt. This one felt the easiest by far out of all the ones I've done, but I just kind of like. I didn't even really focus on the end. I just focused at from group to group. You know what I mean? Like I tried. I didn't play like I said. I honestly didn't even know that was the end right there. I just played it from group to pack, and then made it to the end. That was kind of the strategy I did for this one. And I was just trying to like get as far as I could just to get more sigils to try to get a better sigil drop, to be honest. But I will say, like I said, I did a blind burrows and a zenith today, and they were significantly harder, but only because of blood blisters. I don't know why, but blood blisters in tier 100, man, they sneak up on you and you cannot tank them. But I'll show you guys my gear real quick, so you guys got an idea of what I am doing. And keep in mind, when you see my wand, okay, I'm gonna just warn you guys right now, when you see the wand, the aspect on it is very bad, but I tried for literally 4 days. I've been trying to farm a better one before I even started pushing tier 100s, because I'm missing out on a lot of damage. Well, from two aspects really, but especially the one on my wand, kind of bad. It's kind of bad. The wand is good, but the aspect is, yeah, we need a better one. But my gear is actually really, really good. I'm trying to get a better helmet, and really the only thing I want to change is my helmet, just to get a better roll, maybe a better roll focus at some point, but don't really need it. Helmet though, I definitely can get better. And my wand, like I said, definitely need better aspect on that for sure. But I'll just do a little breakdown of, because obviously we've achieved a tier 100 solo. So the gear, even though it's not quite exactly where I want it, per se, it's obviously pretty close, right? And it's good enough. But yeah, it's pretty simple. Like I said, this helmet I do want to replace. I'm at like 15 million gold to reroll on this thing right now, and trying to get better lucky hit, and I just can't get better. If I could get like 15% lucky hit on that, that would be ideal. And then like obviously a little bit more CDR and even armor. Armor, I'm gonna tell you guys right now, armor is king. You'll see every piece of gear that I can get total armor on, I have it on. And so again, for my helmet, not only is the lucky hit chance kind of low, but the total armor isn't even in the 10%. And when you're talking thousands of armor, like that extra percent makes, you know, it adds up. So again, definitely going to get better at this. That's like my biggest upgrade currently, which again, that's still really good, right? But yeah, then just DR with total armor, right? As much DR as I can pump. And I chose to do damage reduction from close and damage reduction from distant rather than straight damage reduction, because when you add it up, it equates to more, right? So if I have, so you'll see like on my legs as well, I have damage reduction close, damage reduction distant, and damage reduction from enemies affected by shadow damage over time, right? So essentially my legs and my chest are the same thing, right? As much damage reduction as I can get. Same stats, as much armor as I can get, and that's where a lot of my survivability comes into play. And then you add that again over on my neck piece. Look, damage reduction from distant, damage reduction from close, total armor, CDR, right? So basically what I've done is, I'll show you on my little sheet here. I have 61.9% damage reduction from close, 51 from distant, and 50 from shadow dot, right? So that's an insane amount of damage reduction that I'm pumping out. And that's not including, well, my buffs just fell off. But, so I run armor, a little bit of extra health, and that's all I did there. But again, armor is king when it comes to high tier. Even anything over 90, I mean, anything really. Armor in the game is just, armor is the king of the game. So again, every single piece that I can get total armor on, as much as I can get, I'm absolutely guaranteeing to get that on there, right? So you can see it on my neck, my helm, my chest, my legs as much as I can get. And then again, just stacking DR like crazy. DR, double DR there, and then CDR and total armor. That neck, like, I probably will never be able to replace. Perfect CDR, perfect armor, really high. Like that amulet is actually crazy. Most of my gear, like I said, my gear is actually very, 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 very good. Considering this is like one of my biggest upgrades that I can get, and it's still a really good helmet, right? But yeah, so helmet, like I said, as much DR as you can get on your main armor pieces. For my gloves, this is kind of up for debate. The lucky hit heal. So when I was testing things, I didn't really have, when I was testing things, I didn't have like a self heal, right? Like I had to use a potion, right? And in these higher end dungeons, like, it's important to save as many of them as you can for when you're fighting. Especially, you see like some of them groups I get into, stuff gets wild fast, right? Big pulls, multiple elite packs, whatever. It's only a 5% chance, and I don't think, and I actually have a lot of lucky hit on my gear. You'll see, like, so on here, obviously I got lucky hit on the wand. I got lucky hit on my focus, lucky hit on my rings. So again, if you look at my sheet, my lucky hit chance is 55%, and then another 10% when I have a barrier, which anytime I have Bone Storm up, which is almost 100% of the time if I'm fighting any big groups, you know, I'm getting an extra 65% lucky hit bonus. I will say, though, it does not feel like it stacks with that, but I do notice it. And honestly, that heal lucky hit is kind of a low roll, but everything else is so high, right? Perfect crit chance, perfect lucky hit chance, very high attack speed. And the attack speed just helps me pump out corpse explosions a little bit quicker, kind of swing, you know, to set up a little bit quicker. Some people probably would do like all stats or something like that, or full int or something. But I don't know. I prefer it like that. Again, much DR as possible. Armor is king. This might look a little weird to y'all, but the reason for this, so I have all stats and I have dex, and then I have corpse tendrils and of course movement speed. Corpse tendrils is simply for cooldown, like reduction on the ability itself. But the dex and the all stats, the reason for that is right here. So in your Paragon board, you need to hit breakpoints in order to get the bonus benefits. So by putting the dex and the all stats on my pair of boots, I'm able to get all that DR and everything else on every other piece, right? So I don't need int, I don't need all stats, I don't need any of that stuff on any other piece because I put it on my boots. That's the way I prefer it. Because again, I'm trying to get as much armor and as much damage reduction as I can possibly get. And you can see even still, like, I get chunked, and if I don't get set up, like, you just get one shot by elites, or you get two shot by like any little mob, right? So it's like, I don't know, the number one thing I can express is armor, and damage reduction. You need it, at least for this build. I feel like any build is kind of that way, but maybe not. I guess, I don't know, sorceresses maybe can, I don't know, but yeah. So again, DR, blah blah blah. You already saw the neck. The rings, I have crit chance, lucky hit chance, vulnerable damage, and max life. And the max life on here is a little low on both my rings, but everything else is super high, right? Like this, the vulnerable damage on both rings is almost perfect. The crit chance on this ring is perfect. Lucky hit chance is high. Again, lucky hit chance almost perfect on there. Crit chance high. And the reason I did that is because I have so much DR if I'm playing well, that I don't need like 1200 life on each ring, right? Like, I already have 17.5. And then when I pop this, I have over 18k life. Armor is over 10k before I get into battle or like in any fights. So I don't even know what it goes up to, honestly, when I'm fighting, but it's crazy. Probably like 16k, I'd guess. 17, I don't know, a lot. I have a lot of armor, but again, that's because I'm getting as much as I can on every piece I can. But yeah, it's simple as that. For the the aspects, the blood mist, explosive mist, shielding storm, decay, might, ghostwalker, and this is like, this one's kind of bad. Don't judge. That's the best I could find so far. But blighted, I'm missing a lot of damage right here. If I could get a perfect roll on this, that you know, another 21% damage would be a lot. Disobedience on the neck. The reason it's on the neck, again, as much armor as I could possibly get. That's like a must, in my opinion. Don't put it anywhere else. At least, and this is push build, right? This is for the push build. My speed build, like farming like 50 to 60 dungeons fast, super easy. I run, you know, damage. Take out the, so I basically take out the max life. I add corpse explosion in there. Still got armor, still got damage reduction, right? See that? Double damage reduction for both. And then the armor. But I add corpse explosion, again, just a little more damage because you pair it with the Black River and you just melt everything. And again, dex all stats, so on the boots, that way when I swap, because I got the double movement speed, right? Movement speed on the neck. This is, like I said, my speed gear. This is for speed running. I can speed run 60s, like Nightmare 60s, easily, very easily, with this gear. And it's, you know, much quicker because of the double movement on the neck. And you kind of switch things around. You can see I got the blighted on the neck piece there. Again, just to get more damage, because this is more about damage and speed running down here. But yeah, for the push stuff, like I said, that's it. That's all it is. And make sure you're hitting your breakpoints. The Paragon board, probably a little weird. I don't know if anybody else is even doing it like this for Necromancer, but I am. I got damage to close, and the reason for that, so you'll see, like, I got damage to close in my glyph socket, but I also got damage to close on my wand, right? So when you look at my stat sheet, I got 100%, over 100% close damage, which helps with, I feel like for elite, like when you get down to the elites and boss fights and stuff, it seems to help with that, right? I know a lot of people are probably going to call me crazy. I'm actually not using the crowd control, even though you can see I crowd control like crazy, like nonstop, with the diminishing returns on it, and it not really, it doesn't feel like it helps much in boss fights. Like, yeah, when they get staggered, it helps, but like that's the only time. So I feel like I kill everything else fast enough. So I've been trying to find ways to have like more damage for boss fights, because boss fights are definitely like the slowest thing. And I feel like the way I'm doing it now, it just feels better for me. Like I said, I have no problem clearing packs. I have, you know, my damage is still super high, in those scenarios. But I feel like for boss fights, the route I chose to go here, which again, I'll show you real quick. So I got, close damage, and again, that gives more damage reduction. Reduction is king with armor. Vulnerable damage, because it's the best thing in the game, even though like it shows only 34.8%, but again, it's vulnerable damage. Vulnerable damage is, it's when you get real deep into the game, there's buckets, and there's actually a lot of depth in the game, and that's for another, you know, video or time, I guess. I don't know, but yeah. Vulnerable damage, because it's like one of the best stats in the game, and the health. I actually am using this glyph, and again, it was just testing things. A lot of people are using this because it actually, what that glyph does, it makes your attack power, like your cheat sheet or whatever it is. You can see how it's like almost 12k attack power. If I took that glyph out, it would drop to like 8k, 7k, something like that. For whatever reason, it gives crazy, but don't be fooled by that. Like, that sheet isn't really like, I don't know, it's just a weird thing. But when I'm fighting, I would say 99% of the time I'm healthy. So again, that's where I felt like if I actually use that over the crowd control one, which I think is it territorial, I can't remember the name of them, but using this over crowd control, to me, again, I still get plenty of damage from it and I'm healthy all the time. So in pack fights, it doesn't feel, you know, like I'm really missing out on damage. But for boss fights feel smoother to me with this glyph over the crowd control one. And again, that's just personal preference, I guess, in that. And then, of course, the shadow damage. And again, the bonus to that is damage reduction. So two of my glyphs not only give me a little bit of damage boost, but they also give me more damage reduction. And then, again, the healthy glyph, because I'm always healthy when I'm fighting. It's kind of the whole point of the build. And then the vulnerable damage, because, again, vulnerable damage is probably the best stat in the game. In terms of like getting the best bang for your buck in terms of actual damage that you get. Because like when it comes to buckets and stuff, like that's why like you see like, and actually I'm not sure WoW healthy, I'm not sure if the WoW stuff is its own bucket or not, to be honest. I don't know. It feels like I do a lot of damage with it though. Like it feels like it's noticeable. Like I don't know how the diminishing returns are in terms of like with other things. For example, if you look at when I talk about buckets, like all these verse stuff like are in a bucket, right? So they all kind of go together. So like if I have damage verse crowd control and damage verse dot damage verse blah blah blah, like they have diminishing returns because they're all the same bucket. And that's why like vulnerable damage, although well I actually got quite a bit of it, but yeah, like vulnerable damage is its own bucket, crit strike damage is its own bucket. And it's funny because a lot of people probably see the build and are like, why would you get crit damage? I actually have a lot more crit damage in my speed build. But it's just, again, it does make a difference. It feels like I do a lot more. It's just, things just feel better, more smooth. Like your damage over time stuff can't crit technically, but you can clearly see like when I'm fighting packs, like there are a lot of crits going out, and that's not including the Shadow Blight or whatever. Those when that procs, like they hit big, right? So crit is still very valuable even in this type of build, in my opinion. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense. I don't know how hopefully it makes sense, and you guys understand what I'm trying to say. To me it makes sense. I don't know if it makes sense to y'all, but yeah, that's all it is. The gear is honestly, like I said, gonna be very hard to replace. Even my helmet is hard to replace. I feel like helmets in general are really hard to get a hold of though. But yeah, I feel really really good with my gear. Obviously it's tier 100 capable, and you guys should have seen earlier in PvP. If you guys, I actually went out PvPing for the first time, just sent it YOLO, and was stomping. Like I felt like insanely strong against everything. Hoda barbs didn't matter. We were out there absolutely ripping with this build. And the same, well, I actually used my speed gear out there. I used my speed gear, but I used my life rings, if that makes sense, when I was out there. But yeah, it's crazy because this build is actually way stronger than you. Like, I didn't really expect it to do that great in PvP, but like I said, even Hoda, like I'm talking sweat ball, Hoda bar, like level 100 sweat ball, you could tell that's all they do. I actually even had one of them message me afterwards, like asking about my build, because according to him, he said, yeah, Necromancers are the worst in PvP. So I think he was surprised to see, like, you know, somebody actually able to hold their own against him, because he said, this is what he said. He said he's out there daily, like stomping on people and blah, blah, blah. He said if he sees a Necromancer, you know, it's like a free kill. So he just wanted to know what I was doing different, I think. Because obviously that wasn't the story for me or whatever. But so the point of that is, like I said, not only is this build like tier 100 capable end game stuff, but even in PvP, like if you play it right, it's insanely strong. But it's all about, even in the, so whether you're PvPing or doing these dungeons, it's all about your positioning and obviously like your awareness of the map, right? So like you'll see a lot of the times I'm in the fight, but that's when I have my full DR up and like have my blood mist like available and whatever. But you'll also see times where I sidestep. I would call it sidestepping. Like I'll be in the big group and then I'll sidestep, you know, I don't need to go too far, but I'll sidestep and I'll set up a CC, suck them all in with tendrils, right? And then I'll pump out a bunch of corpse explosions if I already have blood mist. If I already did a blood mist in the group, right? I have that from the rings, Ultimate Shadow and Blood Soaked. Like if I have that in the group and I have a bunch of bodies there, right? If I grip them in with the grasping veins, corpse tendrils, or grasping veins is the aspect, but either way, corpse tendrils, when I suck them in, they get stunned and I just pump out corpse explosions. And that's where, again, for me, I like that little bit of extra attack speed on the gloves, because I can pump out a lot more damage doing that. Like it's setup damage, right? So it's the same thing in dungeons. It's the same thing in PvP. Like you just got to set yourself up and not get caught though. Like you'll see times, actually, I think the only death I had in this tier 100 was because I was too comfortable up close. And I think it was a spider host or something exploded on top of like wraiths hitting me at the same time. And it just like, even with my full DR up, it still killed me through it. Right. So you still got to be aware of what's going on. Like you're not, the build is super, super strong, but you have to be on top of your A game, because again, if you don't have your DRs up, you don't set up right, and you're not paying attention to what's around you, you're going to die. No matter how strong and how much DR you have, there's things that are in these super high dungeons that are just simply going to kill you if you don't pay attention to them, right? And that's where, though, like some dungeons are going to be easier than others, just the dungeon themselves, but also like based on the affixes or affixes or whatever they are, however you say that, however they roll, right? And that's honestly one of the hardest things, is like getting a decent dungeon crafted or found that's doable, even if you are like super geared, have super high DR. Because again, even the easy ones aren't easy, because like I say, you mess up and you're dead, right? That's just how it is. But yeah, hopefully that helps anybody that's trying to do a tier 100, anybody that's playing Necromancer that maybe wants to try the build. I don't know if anybody else, like I said, I as far as I know, there's only one other Necromancer that has soloed a tier 100. I don't know if I'm actually the second or not. As far as I know, I don't know anybody else, any other Necromancer that has actually successfully soloed a tier 100. But your boy did, man. I actually did it, dude. I can't believe that. That's wild. But it was the same build. I actually played this build in the beta, had a lot of fun with it. And then when I was leveling, like around level 95, once I started to get close to 100, I started looking at like what builds are available and doing well. And I actually saw that there was a Necromancer that did a tier 100, and it was this, you know, build very similar to this actually. Like I said, the guy, like I actually learned quite a bit from him. But mine is definitely a little different than his, but that's just, again, based on preference. Like my gear is slightly different than his in terms of where I'm putting my DRs and stuff. It's the same concept though, right? Super DR, super armor, and comes down to playability, right? Because again, even if you have all the DR in the world and whatever, you still have to play correct or you're going to die. So, but yeah, very similar, just slight differences in choices of like the actual perks or whatever you want to call them on the pieces. And I'm not sure. I think his glyph choices are different as well. Like his Paragon board, probably a little different than mine, but again, same concept. But I've been like testing things myself. Like I said, I played it in the beta, saw it was viable, kind of got started with it and have been working on the build for a couple weeks now, trying to just test things and feel what felt right to me for the way I like to play. And again, that's where, when it comes to my glyph choices and my DR choices and stuff like that, that's just all came from playing and testing things myself and going with what I felt the best for me, right? But you don't have to my point of that is, you don't really have to copy my gear exactly to do well, right? As long as you stick to the concept of getting a lot of DR and a lot of armor, and you know, you're gonna need quite a bit of lucky hit as well, because the lucky hit is where, with Decrepify, that's how you're able to get your cooldowns back insanely quick and be able to keep going and keep pumping stuff up, keep your Bone Storm up 100% of the time. Because again, Bone Storm is, without Bone Storm up, you are noticeably squishier, even with your full DRs up. And when I say like your full DRs up, I mean like, you know, if you blood miss into a group, you stack your disobedience and stuff like that, right? To get your armor capped out, which is huge for your damage reduction. And like when you swing, right? See how I gained might just by swinging? You don't even actually have to hit a mob for might. But that's another 20% there. But Reap, the reason why, like, I've had people come into the stream and tell me, oh, get rid of Reap. Get rid of Reap. You know who you are. Again, there's no question for this type of stuff. Reap is just way too good. Not only does it guarantee you a corpse to set up your crowd controls with your tendrils, but it also gives you an extra 15%. So if you read towards the bottom, well, the top bottom, it says hitting an enemy with Reap increases your damage reduction by 15%, right? So you'll see, like, when I'm fighting, I'm swinging. So not only am I gaining might by swinging, right? See, basic skills grant, whatever. Not only do I get might, but I also get that extra 15% as I'm fighting. That's why, like, I'm literally spamming Decrepify, spamming that, getting my corp tendrils up to suck things in, and just trying to survive, really. Because at the end of the day, as long as I stay alive and position myself out of the way of like the one-shot things, right, and keep my Decrepify up so that I keep getting my cooldowns back, stuff is going to die. Most of the time. There are some mobs in this game, like Vampiric. Like, my worst nightmare for a tier 100 mob isn't even a boss. It would be a suppressed Vampiric teleporting, like, elite mob. Those would be so annoying to try to actually kill, because Vampiric in this game, like, even if you play really well and kites, because that's kind of what you got to do. Like, you got to kite them and hold them back and kind of not let them take a bite out of you, you know, to get their health back, I guess, for lack of a better term. Some mobs are just super fast, and like I said, when they teleport and stuff and they're suppressed, like, I don't know, it's just, some mobs can feel impossible to beat. But again, that kind of comes down to the RNG. Same thing with like the affixes that you roll. Even if you do get a tier 100, are they going to be decent affixes, or are they going to be just completely against you, right? So there's a lot of RNG involved. Not only do you need the build right and play right, you still need the RNG factor of like getting something that's doable, in my opinion. I didn't actually expect to clear this one, honestly. Because again, apparently, according to the list, I guess I don't know, but this is supposedly a D tier dungeon. So the fact that I cleared it, I'm actually really surprised. But like I said, I will say, for me, it felt easier than every other tier 100 I did today. I did a handful of tier 100s today, and obviously this is the only one I've completed. But I think the reason was, you saw like a lot of times there, I almost got one shot and almost died, but my damage reduction is just through the roof, that I'm able to just barely not get one shot. And I feel like most people do, and that's probably why this dungeon, for most people, like, they just can't can't get through it in that sense. But that's where, again, armor and DR are king, and everything you do, like I said, my glyphs give me DR, my reap gives me DR, you know, my aspects give me DR, my gear itself gives me DR. So it's like, when you think of the amount of DR that I have on my build, it's actually insane. But again, when you're playing, you have to be thinking of that, right? So again, the swinging, gaining the might, actually hitting an enemy, getting an extra 15% there. Like, as you're fighting, you have to constantly be doing that stuff to keep your full DR up. So that way, if you do get hit by things, you have a shot at not getting one tap. That's where, again, for me, like in here, because I am trying to be conscious of that the whole time, right? Like, my strategy in here was to take group by group. I literally come up to a group and I'd focus on that group, move to the next. Some of them groups got pretty big, and it got pretty scary at times with like the wraiths or banshees or whatever. But again, being conscious of the DR and where all my DR comes from, not just having it on my gear, but realizing where it comes from as I'm playing, that all matters and that all makes a difference in like actually being able to get through it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?